Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. The Australian Open 2023 men's final has been set. Novak Djokovic versus Stefanos Tsitsipas. Will it be repeat or revenge after that Roland Garros 2021 final where Novak Djokovic came back from 2-0 down to beat the Greek in 5 sets? Both players will be battling for the #1 ranking and, of course, the Australian Open crown as Djokovic looks to win his 10th Australian Open title and his 22nd slam, equaling Nadal's tally. For Tsitsipas, it'll be all about winning his first Australian Open title, which will coincide with his first Grand Slam title. So a massive final in store for us. Before we get into it, though, remember to hit that like button and do subscribe if you are new. Also, do leave a rating or review if you're listening on a podcast platform. And thank you to all our members. It's greatly appreciated, your support. What we're going to do is we're going to break this video down. So first of all, we're going to talk about their route to the final. Then I'm going to talk about their head-to-head, and then we're going to look at it in a more tactical view. So look at tactically how the match might play out and what we've learned from the head-to-head, and also some of the stats from the tournament so far. And then look at the mental aspect, because as we know, the mental aspect plays a big part in not just elite tennis, but also between certain players as well. And then ultimately, I'll give you guys my prediction on who I think is going to win and take the crown at the end of this video. Okay, so first of all, the route to the final. So I'll bring up their route to the final, and you can see here, and we'll go through Tsitsipas's first. He's had a pretty impressive route, beating Hallis, the French player, and qualifier, Hijikata, Grykspor, all in straight sets. He came up against his sternest test against the young and talented Italian Yannick Sinner, beating him in 5 sets. That was a little bit of a test, though, for Tsitsipas, in the sense that he was 2-0 down. He surrendered that lead. But to come through in the 5th set, I thought was pretty impressive and showed some good mental fortitude. Whether he could do something similar against Djokovic in a final remains to be seen. We can talk about that a bit more later. Then we also have Tsitsipas versus Lehechka, beat him in straight sets in pretty resounding fashion. And then, in my opinion, one of the best performances of the tournament so far, Tsitsipas beating Khachanov in 4 sets. He hit almost double the amount of winner unforced errors. Some really good stats in terms of serve. The win percentage behind the first set was very, very good as well, very high, around the 75 to 80% mark. And that's what really impressed me about that performance from Tsitsipas against Khachanov, who is very, very good when it comes to Grand Slam tournaments. Yeah, 84% of first serve points won, 18 aces as well to boot. So that was an impressive performance from the Greek player, I have to say. And he will be happy with that going into the final. Despite dropping that set, he did have match points in the 3rd set tiebreaker. He didn't manage to close it out. It took him into a 4th, but in the end, all's well that ends well for him. For Novak Djokovic, it's been an interesting run. Carlos Bayano was in straight sets. Quad dropped a tiebreaker to lose one of the sets there. Dimitrov and Dimona dispatched them in straight sets. Same with Rublev and Tommy Paul. But it wasn't without its slight obstacles, and that's really the hamstring. And he felt it quite a bit against Dimitrov, who didn't really capitalize at all. Dimona, he didn't feel it, and Rublev as well didn't really feel it by the looks of it. Against Tommy Paul, he started to feel it a little bit. He was 5-1 up in the first set. He conceded that lead to go 5-all. In the end, he closed it out 7-5 and then dominated the 2nd and 3rd sets. But there looked like there was still a little bit of discomfort with that hamstring after he said in the previous 2 matches that they'd done some treatment and he wasn't really feeling it at all. But he did look to feel it a little bit in that match. So that's the route to the final for both. And I guess as a quick background, I very vaguely talked about how they've looked throughout. I mean, Tsitsipas has been striking the ball really cleanly, serving very well, big forehand. We know he's got really good weapons at his disposal. For Djokovic, he's been clutch in big moments, serving extremely well, and trying to be very aggressive as well, trying to shorten points when he can. So that's a very brief outline, because I want to go into it in more detail later on in the video. In terms of the head-to-head between the 2 players, now this is where it gets quite interesting. The head-to-head is 10-2 to Novak Djokovic, and he is dominating the head-to-head, as you can see. Tsitsipas beat him quite a while back now. So he beat him once in 2018 in Toronto, which was on hard court, and once in Abu Dhabi, again, which was on hard court. Also beat him in Shanghai. The Abu Dhabi one, I think, is exhibition. So Shanghai beat him in 2019, again, on hard court. But since then, it's been all Novak Djokovic. I mean, you can see here, I mean, whether it's on hard court or clay, it's just been Djokovic dominant in the head-to-head. Now, it might not look as dominant as you might think when we talk about some of the specifics, especially that Paris match. We'll talk a little bit about that because I feel like in that Paris match, there were some learnings that Tsitsipas should take from that, which would, in my opinion, be one of the ways to beat Djokovic if he is to, one, pull it off, and two, you know, I think he also has to have an expectation that Djokovic doesn't play at his absolute best as well. So we can break that down, and I want to now talk about how tactically this match might play out and what we might see and what I think Tsitsipas or Djokovic should do and what they might do as well. So the reason why I just highlighted that Paris Masters match is because that's the tightest match they've had recently and for a very long time. That was only in November. Now, 9 days later, Djokovic beat him in straight sets, 7-6, 6-4, or 6-4, 7-6 even, which, again, like that's a tight match. Still not as tight as the Paris one, but, you know, at least Tsitsipas was very competitive. In Paris, though, Tsitsipas played some really good tennis. It was 6-2, 3-6, 7-6 to Djokovic, 7-4 in the tiebreaker. But Tsitsipas played some fantastic tennis. And you can see, I mean, you can have a look at the stats itself. I mean, 27 winners to 11 unforced errors for Tsitsipas. And Djokovic was also very good at 36 winners to 12 unforced errors. But what Tsitsipas did really well in that match was coming to the net. He came to the net on a fast indoor hard court and he had success. Now, against Djokovic, who's one of the best passers to ever grace a tennis court, one of the best defensive players to ever grace a tennis court, to have net points won percentage of around 75 to 80% is extremely impressive for Stefanos Tsitsipas. Now, I've got two differing stats. I've got one that says he came to the net 11 out of 17 times and was successful in that sense. I've got another stat which I think is even more impressive. Which one is right? Well, who knows? But I think I've got it here, actually. He came to the net 25 times, and he won 19 out of the 25 points. So if that's the case, that's even more impressive. But either way, he has success coming forward, right? That's the main point. The point is that his transition game is very good for the most part. He volleys extremely well. He's got good feel at the net, good hands, very loose racket, doesn't hold it tight. He finds really, really good angles as well on the volleys. He's able to vary it. His positioning is good. And the biggest thing for me is his composure as well at the net. And his reactions are also equally good. So that's all going in his favor for Stefanos Tsitsipas. Now, the question, I guess, is why should he come to the net? And I explained a little bit why, because he's obviously going to have some success by the sounds of it, by the sounds of what happened in Paris. Because Paris is the best example of a match where he was the closest to winning against Djokovic. It was a final set tiebreaker. So I think we need to look at that match a little bit, right, in more detail. The other reason to get involved or to not get involved in really long baseline exchanges for me is the fact that Djokovic is so good in the backhand to backhand exchanges. There's actually an interesting stat actually about Djokovic and his percentage point success going into the ad corner. So Djokovic's return and shot combination, he wins 53% of the points when they go past 15 shots into the ad corner. That is ridiculous. That's return +1 into the ad corner. So that's return +1. He's winning more than half the percentage of points when he goes into the ad side. There's also some interesting stats that show that the majority of the time he's going into that ad side, whether it's from the server's the server's juice or ad side serve. So even if they're going out wide to his forehand, he'll try and go down the line into the backhand if he can. Majority of his returns are going into Tsitsipas's backhand, or will be going to Tsitsipas's backhand, which is seen as weaker than his forehand, which it is. The statistics back that up as well. When we went through the ratings for the semi-finals, it's not as bad as maybe expected. It's higher than the tour average, 7.4 I think it was, and the tour average is 7. But his forehand is at 8.2 I think it is, and the tour average is 7.5. So he's well beyond that. Now, in terms of not getting involved in that backhand-to-backhand exchange, Djokovic is going to force that. He's going to force it as much as possible. And I guess the worst thing for Tsitsipas is that now, given how Djokovic is playing, not only will he try and engage in that, but he will use that as an opportunity to then go to the forehand as soon as possible and attack with that, whether that's with the into-out forehand or the into-in forehand. Now, Tsitsipas has a slight saving grace in this scenario in that defensively on the forehand, he's actually very good at covering that side, because generally he will try to access the into-out forehand as much as possible. And like Andrei Rublev, his movement around that backhand is top tier. But his into-out forehand and his forehand generally is probably of better quality than Rublev's. In fact, it is of better qualities than Rublev's, I can tell you that. And defensively on the forehand side is also better. He does very well to pour it back and block it back on the forehand side, or slice it back into play, almost squash shot forehand even, is utilized to great effect. And then on top of that, he's able to get to neutral in an easier fashion, I would say. The issue that he has, though, however, is that in the past, Djokovic might give you an opportunity to get back into it. The way that he's playing now, and we saw that stat in the semi-finals that I brought up about him being in attack. So in the past, he was attacking in points generally at around 20%. Now he's at 25%. So that to me means that he has ramped up the aggression in rallies. He's looking to shorten them a bit more, and he's looking to be more efficient, not just grind with you as he would have done 10 years ago. So this added aggression, which is very evident when you watch him play now, means that he's looking to access the forehand as much as possible as well. It doesn't mean that he's going to neglect the backhand or hit forehands when he knows that the backhand is the right option. But if he can go into in or into out with the forehand, he will do so, and he'll try and hurt you with the forehand. And the problem for players now is that he can hurt you with the forehand. So for Tsitsipas, the real question is, how does he stop that pattern of play? How does he stop the ad court, I guess the cross court the ad court cross exchange? How does he stop that? There's a few ways to stop that, and one is, for example, on his serve to serve and volley, and of course that will stop that full stop. But he can't just rush the net every single service point. I think he needs to utilize it at the right times. I think if he's going to go out wide to the Djokovic backhand, if he finds a good angle, then I don't see why he can't come into the net. Similarly, if he finds, normally you come in, or most serve and volleyers come in behind a wide first serve, but he needs to make sure he nails that angle, Tsitsipas, because if he doesn't, Djokovic will pass him, or he'll make it very tough for him to volley at the net by hitting a laser-like return very low over the net. But Tsitsipas's hands are good enough that he might even get away with that. Now, he needs to pick and choose his moments, of course, but that's a tactic to utilize, which then feeds into that Paris point I made. What he also needs to do is he needs to try and access the into-out forehand as soon as possible. Now, Djokovic will try and keep it away from his forehand, and he'll try and find as much angle as possible to keep on accessing the Steph backhand. I think for Steph that he's got two options, maybe even three, actually. The first option is he goes, okay, I'm going to try and disrupt Djokovic's rhythm and slice into the backhand of Djokovic so that he can't just keep on pummeling away with the backhand. Because if he goes dry backhand to dry backhand, Djokovic will break him down eventually. I don't think Tsitsipas is going to win many of those exchanges. So either he goes slice into the backhand or he goes slice down the line. And that's a harder shot to hit. And the problem with hitting that is that what Djokovic is very good at, now I don't know if you've noticed this in the matches that we've seen at the Australian Open, but this is something he's done for a very long time. The way that he defends on the forehand, for the most part, is incredible. Now, the way that he does it, now most players would hit a squash shot backhand or they kind of slice it back as well or lob it back into play. He hits an open stance forehand with a short backswing, but a full-blooded swing. When I say full-blooded swing, I don't mean he's got really quick hands going for the ball or it's fast racket speed acceleration. I'm more talking about he isn't hitting a slice or a block forehand. He's hitting a topspin forehand in open stance, and normally it's got really good depth on it. It's got a lot of coverage over the net. It's pretty loopy, but what it does do for the most part is find a great angle cross court. And it gets him back to neutral, even on the front foot in some instances, straight away. Sometimes he'll go down the middle or down the line, but for the most part, it's cross court. And he finds a great angle on it because of the open stance, kind of short backswing. He's able to find this really nifty angle. And it's a pain for players. It really is, because they're thinking, I've just hit a fantastic shot. I've opened up the court. I've then gone line, and Djokovic is killing me with that defensive shot on the forehand side. Like, how do I beat him? And then if I go into the backhand, well, he's gonna break me down on the backhand side. So that's a real conundrum for someone like a Tsitsipas. However, if Djokovic does do that, the advantage Tsitsipas has is that his forehand is exceptional as well. And the great thing about Tsitsipas's forehand is the angles he finds cross court. He's able to find beautiful angles cross court because of the high topspin he puts on that tennis ball. He's also able to flatten it out at times as well, and he'll go line at really, really good opportunities. And his into-out forehand will give Djokovic some trouble on his backhand side. He will. But back to the backhand to backhand. So Steph either needs to slice down the line or go cross court as a mix-up anyway, as a variation. Or he goes, and this is a potential risk, and he also mixes it up with going line first on the backhand. Now, I don't know how comfortable and how well, it really depends on how well he's hitting his backhand on the day, to be honest with you, because if he's shanking it a lot and he's not really hitting it as cleanly as he'd like, he's not necessarily feeling it on that side, which can happen, although it hasn't happened as much recently, then it's problematic because he'll make a lot of errors doing that. If he's feeling it, he might be able to get away with it. He might. And that just means that he breaks that pattern and he's able to get back into a pattern where hopefully he's able to access his forehand again, right? Because Djokovic most likely is going to go line straight away with the forehand. He will go, as long as Tsitsipas has hit that backhand on the line clean enough, Djokovic will be behind the baseline, which means he most likely will go cross. He won't go line straight away. So that's one baseline pattern of play to watch out for and see how that evolves. I think Tsitsipas also needs to utilize a drop shot. He did that quite a lot against Djokovic in the most recent meetings, and it's something that he utilizes quite usefully. And what he does is he normally comes in behind the drop shot and tries, and if he needs to volley, he will volley because his hands are very good at the net, as we previously said. So that's another option as well as a mix-up, and it's good because he's got that as an option. And not all players have these different tools to rely upon, but Steph does, which is good. And his slice is also improved. It's still not an A+ slice or an A slice. It's not. It's more a B+, I would say, but it's getting there. It's getting there. It really is. So that's good to see at least. The forehand to forehand exchanges is where he probably feels like he'll have more success. I would imagine, though, he needs to dictate the proceedings as well, and he needs to come forward when he can. Where does he approach, though, the Djokovic forehand or backhand? Because if he approaches it, he's got to nail the approach. Tsitsipas in the past has been guilty at times of shortening the approach or not hitting it clean enough and then getting picked off at the net. As someone who's a very good volleyer, you still need to give yourself a chance. If the approach isn't good enough, you will still lose the point, no matter how good a volleyer you are at this level. The whole point of coming forward and transitioning and volleying is, for the most part, to have an easy volley to put away. Sometimes it might not be because the player on the other side of the net is just that good and they make it really hard for you. But someone of Tsitsipas's quality and someone of Tsitsipas's forehand ability should be getting a lot of easy volleys in the net, and he's starting to more and more. That into-out forehand is a real weapon. Now, Djokovic is so good and so elastic, and I know everyone's talking about the hamstring problems. I don't think it's going to be an issue in this final. Steph is going to have to back himself, and he has to really believe that he can do it. If he just trades from the back of the court, he will lose this match. He needs to mix it up. He needs to come to the net. He needs to utilize the drop shot. He needs to utilize angles on serve and volley at times. He needs to be proactive. And on the second serve return, on Djokovic's second serve return, he has to be aggressive. He has to be. There is no point going down the middle of the court every single second serve return and being happy with just getting to neutral. He will not win enough second serve points to make a difference on the service games by doing that. He will have to be more proactive. He'll have to take more risks, and it might mean a few more errors, but if he's able to balance that out with winners or points won on crucial moments, it'll be worth it. I think the other thing to think about is the serve return dynamic, because for Djokovic, his serve has been so good, and it is arguably a top 3, top 5 serve on tour now. He hits his spots beautifully. Even when he was injured with the hamstring, it didn't matter because he was serving so efficiently, hitting his spots, unreturnables, aces. With the forehand, his serve and forehand has now become an incredible combo. And someone, of course, who also has an incredible serve and forehand combo is Stefanos Tsitsipas, who's got an elite serve and forehand combo. For Tsitsipas, his returning has improved. It's still not at the level probably that it needs to be. Is it serviceable enough for him to trouble Djokovic? Maybe. On the second serve, he should be able to implement an aggressive game plan, and he should be able to have some success with it. I'm more worried about the first serve return, because the first serve return, the way that Djokovic is serving as well, Tsitsipas tends to gamble sometimes as well on the return and anticipate. His backhand, he can shank the return a fair bit, but what he's done recently is shorten the backswing, and he's almost conceded and said, I will be happy to hit a block backhand return deep into play, which doesn't have a lot on it, just to get to neutral, hopefully, rather than shanking my backhand because I'm trying to take a full-blooded swing at it. If it's to his forehand, he shouldn't have much of an issue because his forehand return is not too bad. And on the stretch even, he looks pretty comfortable on that forehand side. It's mainly into the backhand and into the body, but he's improving on that aspect. So if he's able to make a pretty decent percentage of first serve returns in, he'll give himself a decent chance in those points. And that's what he needs to do. He needs to make it everything needs to be as competitive as possible from his side of the court. He needs to be fighting for everything. And he needs to really have that belief that he is good enough to be on that court of Djokovic and to beat him despite the head-to-head. Because that Paris match, I think, highlighted to me and to a lot of people that he has what it takes to beat Djokovic. He's probably getting close. Whether it's this match or another match, I don't know. But, well, you have to find out my prediction later. But it is a positive sign, right? So we'll see how he comes out. For Tsitsipas, he needs to hit his spots. He has to be honest with you, against Djokovic. I mean, the serve out wide and the serve and volley combo is going to be really, really important. And also his serve and forehand combo. He needs to be at his top level when it comes to serve. 60% plus first serves at least. Needs to be really backing up nicely with the forehand as he normally does. and then he needs to come forward as well to the net when he can at the right moments. Try and shorten the points. Don't engage in long rallies, especially on his serve. He knows that Djokovic will break him down otherwise, and he wants to have to save as little break points as possible, right? That's the ideal scenario for Stefanos Tsitsipas. So we'll see whether that's the case, but he has been phenomenal in certain aspects of his game, has Tsitsipas. The other thing to bear in mind is the conditions and the fact that it's going to be in the night, so the balls are probably not going to bounce as high. I would imagine that's a slight advantage to Djokovic because it's a bit colder. I think Tsitsipas would prefer it if it was probably higher bouncing balls, but it still will be pretty damn humid. I would imagine that given that Tsitsipas has made back-to-back semi-finals and now a final here, he knows how the courts play. I don't think it plays a huge difference in conditions. I think both players have played in nighttime conditions in Australia, and they've obviously had their fair share of success. It's more going to be who implements their game plan the best. I think for Djokovic, the biggest thing for him will be trying to avoid Tsitsipas from hitting forehand. Even he will be trying to make him hit as many backhands as possible, and he'll also be trying to make sure that he kills them with depth as well, because he'll know that if Tsitsipas gets a shorter ball, he'll try and approach the net, and that could give Djokovic some issues. So Djokovic will try and be in his comfort zone, and he'll try and go deep and deep and deep with the ground strokes. And if he needs to go into ball machine mode, he will. He'll also try and serve and volley as well, because he'll know Tsitsipas' return, especially on the backhand, he might try and go down the middle with a backhand return, and that's when he's able then to come forward on the volley and get an easy volley to put away. And similarly, he will try and attack as well, because Tsitsipas, as good as I said he is defensively on the forehand side, he's still the type of player that wants to be dictating, wants to be on the front foot. He is fantastic attacking. He's solid defensively, but of course he would prefer to be on the front foot. So when he's on the back foot, that's still a disadvantage. And Djokovic will be looking to dictate proceedings and have him on the back foot, keep him quiet so he's not able to hit those rocket forehands, come forward and finish off points in the net, and use his his dynamic athleticism to really cause problems for Djokovic. In terms of the drop shot as well, I can see Djokovic using that a little bit, although Tsitsipas is pretty good at chasing them down. He used it a few times, Djokovic, against Tommy Paul. It worked a couple of times. Tsitsipas is probably just as athletic as Tommy Paul, so it'll be interesting to see how many times he uses that. So we talked about tactically how it could work out. Now, mentally, we need to address that. So mentally, it's Tsitsipas' first Australian Open Grand Slam final, but he's in a similar territory. He's made a Grand Slam final before. He was 2 sets low up against Djokovic, obviously, and he's now here again at Grand Slam final against Djokovic on a different surface, a different court, arguably, well, not arguably, it is a tougher test, I would say, given it's a court and a tournament that Djokovic has won 9 times. He's never lost a final at the Australian Open, Novak Djokovic. Whenever he's made a semi-final stage, he's gone on to win it. It's a really big ask, no doubt, and mentally Djokovic has the edge. He's been there, he's done it. This is his home almost. This is his tennis home. He will be extremely confident going into this. I imagine he will have the majority backing of the crowd. There is a pretty heavy Greek contingent, even in Melbourne. So there will be fans for Tsitsipas, but I imagine it'll be like 65-35 Djokovic, I would imagine, which is obviously a positive. That's a advantage for Djokovic as well, no doubt. But it will be more the fact that he's got the experience. He's also beaten Tsitsipas in a Grand Slam final. For Tsitsipas, how much scar tissue is there from that final at Roland Garros in 2021? Is he of the mindset of, oh, damn, that's really haunting me? Or is it, no, I'm going to get revenge. I'm good enough to get revenge. I can do this. I believe in myself. And it's very easy to say, I believe in myself, but deep down, do you actually? That's the real question. Does he really believe that he is good enough to beat Djokovic? Because the issue that a lot of these players on tour have when they play Djokovic or Nadal is that they give them so much respect. They're so happy to just play them. They're legends of the game that when they go out onto court, I feel like they try to put it to the back of their mind, but they can't. And all they end up thinking is, I'm so lucky to be playing him. I'm so happy to be here. Forget about being happy to be here. Be happy to win. Say to yourself, you are good enough to beat him. From what I've seen from Tsitsipas, he is saying that. There's also a bit of cheekiness going around as well. I don't know whether this is deliberate, but Djokovic forgot that he'd played Tsitsipas in a final of a Grand Slam because he'd said, I don't think Tsitsipas has ever made it this far. And they go, no, you made the final in Roland Garros. You played him, you beat him in 5 sets. And Djokovic goes, oh, yeah, I forgot about that. So that was a bit cheeky. And Tsitsipas said, yeah, don't worry, I forgot about it too. So I don't know if there was a bit of cheeky verbal sparring going on there. But yeah, anyway, it is what it is. But mentally, of course, as I said, Djokovic has got the edge, no doubt. But Tsitsipas is going to have to be on his game. He needs to be dialed in throughout. He can't have any dips. He's prone to a dip here or there. I just don't think he can afford it. And I think that first set is going to be crucial. And I always say this. And I know Djokovic has lost first sets in Grand Slam finals in the past and gone on to win them. And he'll still be the favorite. Even if Tsitsipas goes 2 sets love up, he'll still be the favorite. But that first set for Tsitsipas is crucial. He loses the first set. I think it's very hard for him to come back, despite even being 2 sets love up and then surrendering 2 sets to Sinner and then winning in the 5th. It's different when you are behind and you need to recover. And Tsitsipas hasn't had to do that at this Australian Open so far. And against Djokovic, who's a fantastic front runner, he probably doesn't want to do it, even more so. So what's my prediction then? Who do I predict winning in this? It's a really tough one. I would love to say that Tsitsipas gets his first ever Grand Slam and wins and surprises everyone, because I don't think there's many people backing him. But I think it's going to be tough for him. I do. And unless Djokovic comes out and suddenly he is hampered with a hamstring or something else, it's very, very tough to back against him. And even though I'm very left field with most of my predictions, I'm going to go Djokovic in 4 sets. I think Tsitsipas might take the first set or the second set. I can see it happening. And then I think maybe Djokovic will win a tiebreaker as well in one of the sets he wins and end up winning in 4 sets. So that's my prediction. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below as well. Do you agree with my verdict? Actually, lastly as well, I said maybe the conditions don't matter for the day and night sessions, but listen to this. So a lot of you might have heard of ELO ratings or ELO ratings, which are a metric to measure someone's ability. So Djokovic's overall ELO rating is 2,237. Now his hardcourt ELO rating is 2,423. But listen to this. His hardcourt night session ELO rating is 2,678. His hardcourt night session ELO rating is over 400 more than his overall ELO rating and over 200 more than his hardcourt ELO rating. That is ridiculous. He is phenomenal in night sessions, is what that stat is telling me. So Tsitsipas really does have his work cut out for him. Is he capable of winning this? Yes, if he follows a game plan to a T, if he utilizes coming to the net, if he is aggressive on the forehand and he takes risks and they come off, if he gets out and breaks that backhand to backhand exchange and pattern of play, and if he serves extremely well and returns well, I don't see why not. But there's a lot of boxes to be ticked. There's a lot of boxes to be ticked by Tsitsipas to beat Djokovic, even if Djokovic is only playing his B-level tennis. So my prediction is Djokovic in 4. Let me know your thoughts below. Thank you very much, guys. Stay safe and well. We'll see you on the next video.